quite a bit. Look at it. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
so I'm like it. I'm saying, I think
11,000 something. Now that's a lesson. Lesson
that's
for
what I'm
others.
saying. We get, once this gets out, people are going to go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's quite a fine.
it is a fun.
Or if we don't do that, everybody else is going to say, "Oh, I can afford 2 or 3,000."
Well, like the guy that gave us wrote the $4,000 check because he did what he wanted to do.
Well, he didn't cry. He did cry about it.
Well, but he just did that.
Figured he saved some more.
Yeah.
But he had no problem. Well, he might have thought differently if it's been $11,000 check. And once the tree, the beauty of this is when all the trees stay here,
Oh yeah.
they'll be able to say that for
Maybe
me.
the tree clearing people have got to see a permit before they do it.
Yeah, well, and they do, and that guy told me, but now they'll be able to say, or it could cost you $11,000.
And
Hello, Madam Reverend. I'll call on you as the microphone's on.
okay, look, we're not allowing.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. The City of Southport Board of Aldermen meeting, October 5th, 2023, is now called to order. Thank you for your attendance. Welcome, and welcome to those watching virtually. This is the first of two Board of Aldermen meetings this month, so I want to thank the city manager, our city staff, our Board of Aldermen for going ahead with two meetings a month so we can do the business of our citizens and our city. Thank you for your dedication. Our invocation will be by Reverend Alderman Lowe Davis, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Most loving, most wise God, we ask that today you give us wisdom, you give us strength to know, to understand, and to make good and right decisions for the city. And we thank you for all the blessings that you bestow on Southport, its citizens, and its visitors. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Alderman Davis. Item D, introduction of new employees. City Manager Bonnie Theron.
Yes, I'm going to ask Maureen and Heather to come on up, and they can introduce their new employees to the public.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Aldermen. Today I am here to introduce Abby Glenn. She is our new permit tech. She has moved to the area in 2020 and was a permit tech for the town of Oak Island. She has a 9-year-old daughter and 2 dogs that love to go to the beach. Yeah.
I would like to, there she is. I would like to introduce Amanda Clemens. Everybody calls her Mandy though, so you can call her Mandy. She is our new recreation assistant. Mandy is born, bred, and raised here in Brunswick County, Southport, North Carolina. Went to the Alva Elementary, South Middle, South High School, and Brunswick Community College. And so she also, neat little story about her I have to tell. Mandy, when I first came here in '98, she was in my summer camp. So she was one of my kiddos. So, and then she, when she was in college, she came back and has really worked for us part-time, since she went to college. So we're absolutely thrilled to have her on board full-time. So thank you.
All right, thank you. It's always good to see new employees and to know that, Heather, you've been here a long time and have that wonderful connection with Mandy. That's beautiful, so thank you for that. I'm going to read the ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Any conflicts, Board? Okay, thank you. Item E will be approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I see that there's something omitted. Normally at this point in the order of business, we have public comment. Can we add that to the agenda, even before the agenda at this point? I know that we probably would like to keep these meetings expeditiously brief if possible, but public comment at a meeting at which we are voting should have public comment, should be part of it.
So
It is today's.
we certainly can add that, and also, Madam Alderman, there also is an item 9, political signs and the UDO requirements. That was not on the original agenda. So we certainly will have that, and board, it's up to you if you would like to add public comment to this meeting. Okay, all right. We'll have a... Yes, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, by Alderman Lowe Davis, and a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. So the next item on our agenda will be public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to speak in public comment, we would be happy for you to come up. All right, welcome, Mr. Robbins. Just make sure your microphone is on. State your name, address, and your topic.
Is this mic on? My name is Jason Robbins. I'm at 504B Brunswick Street. My comments are about item 9. Is this the appropriate moment, or should I wait for consideration of that item?
No, now's a good time. Yeah.
Thank you. I have heard from several people with concerns about the placement and allowances for political signs on private property here in Southport. As I understand it, the most recent revisions to the Unified Development Ordinance indicate that only one sign per property or per lot is allowed. That is an explicit and direct violation of the Constitution of the United States, Amendment 1, freedom of speech. And I call your attention to the oaths that you each swore when you took these offices, that nothing you shall do shall contravene the Constitution. Most specifically, there is case law that I could read you 2 pages on, but I won't indulge. The case itself is referred to as Ledoux versus Gileo. In the final analysis, the court found that none of the town's interests or concerns over residential signs warrants such an abridgment of its citizens' First Amendment rights. This was in response to efforts to ban such signs at a city in Missouri. I'm certain that you understand the principles here. I'm certain this is a surprise to everybody that such an extreme position is taken by the Southport statutes. There's lots of options here. I believe a resolution is in order instructing the city not to enforce this pending further review and amendment of the UDO. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Okay, great. Thank you. Item F is approval of the consent agenda. And on our consent agenda, we have electronic records policy. This is the digitalization of records. And the board is asked to adopt a policy for management of these records. And this will free up space in City Hall and other areas. The next item is abandonment of the Southeast Brunswick Sanitary District pipe. And this is the transfer of ownership of this force main to Southport Brunswick Sanitary District. There's no cost to the city for this. The city has no use for this, and this will allow the sanitary district to take ownership of the force main and to keep as a redundant line to keep the systems tied together. So that is item 2 in the consent agenda. Item 3 is an agreement with the North Carolina League of Municipalities for cybersecurity assistance. The league has decided to use some of their ARPA funding to assist municipalities in cybersecurity enhancements. So what the board needs to do is to agree with this resolution to have the league help us with this. Items 4, 5, and 6 in your consent agenda are minutes from the regular agenda review and workshop on September 8th, minutes of the regular agenda review and workshop August 4th, and then minutes of the special town hall meeting on homelessness on September 5th. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Lombardi. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Lowe Davis, and Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Item G, special recognition. I don't think we have any special recognition at this meeting. We will on the October 12th meeting. Item H, the agenda, item 1, and that is the presentation and update of the NC 211 construction. And Mr. Pratt, resident engineer, NC DOT. Thank you, sir.
It's good to be here today representing the DOT. So my name is Josh Pratt. I'm the resident engineer of District 3. So I cover New Hanover and Brunswick County. Here with me to answer any questions that come up. I've got Anthony Law. He's the division construction engineer of Division 3. His assistant division construction engineer, Dan Cumbo. And then Steve Knowles, who is our project engineer on 211. So here's, for anybody who hadn't seen this, is just kind of an overview of the project that goes from River Road all the way down to Midway. We've got kind of a big picture project overview. We've got $217,260,048 contract. Includes grading, drainage, signals, and structures. Our contractor is Barnhill Contracting. Work began on February 2022. We've got 7.29 miles of 4-lane highway. We have 2 grade separated interchanges at Long Beach Road and 906. We've got 6 bridges, 4 culverts, and 13 retaining walls. We have 1.2 million cubic yards of borrow, and our updated completion date is June of 2027. So our current status, this is based on payout of line items. So total percent complete is 32%. Utility percent complete is 73%. Borrow percent complete is 35%. Culvert complete percentage is 27%. And we also have the westbound bridge at the CP&L Canal. We have the girders set on that structure. So here's an overview of the utilities we've done to this date. The 24-inch force main sewer that basically runs the length of the project. Here the solid red line on the west side, that is 17,400 linear feet that's ready to be tied in here probably within the next month. The dashed line going from there east is we've got about 13,619 linear feet of that force main sewer that's in the ground. We also have 16,500 linear feet of the 16-inch reclaimed water system. That's the solid blue line on the west side there. That is ready for tie-in. Other significant progress they've made of 5,550 linear feet of the 18-inch raw water line, and the 4,760 linear feet of the 24-inch water line that's in the ground. And as I've noted before, we're 73% complete by payouts. So this is an overview of our structures work. So structures includes bridges, culverts, and retaining walls. We have we don't have anything complete. I just put that there to note it, but we do have partially complete. Let's see if I can. There we go. Partially complete, as I noted before, the structure number 5, the westbound bridge over the CP&L Canal. They have the end bench, the bench, and the girder set on those. We also have phased construction. I'll go into a little bit, a couple slides from now, for this culvert 3 and culvert 2. So this one here is at Midway, and this one is between St. James Drive and Executive. Upcoming work, we've got the Culvert 1 here near the Lowe's Foods. That'll be another phased construction. We got MSE walls 3 and 4 on the north side here. And then we have the bridge, the westbound bridge over the Dutchman Creek. That'll begin here in the next probably 4 months. So this is the structure 5, the westbound bridge at the CP&L Canal. So kind of big picture, the phasing for this project is we're doing our, maintaining traffic, and then we're constructing the westbound traffic and structures and culverts. And then once that's done, we'll shift traffic over to what will be the future westbound side. That'll allow us to construct the, place the fill, do the structures and the culverts on the eastbound side. So you can see there they have the girder set. This bridge here is a temporary work bridge for the crane. This is the westbound bridge at Dutchman Creek. As noted here, the elevation of the new bridge is approximately 5 feet higher than the existing structure, which, if you may have noticed, our temporary walls are shoring here. That's to facilitate the additional height in this condition while we maintain traffic over here. So there is that 24-inch sewer line that is in the ground in a lot of these areas. It's not tied in. Once that's tied in, that'll open up this structure to begin work. Here's an example of phased culvert construction. This is near Midway. Here you can see the existing culvert underneath 211. Over here, this is the new phase 1 of the culvert. We've got temporary shoring there, and when traffic is shifted over on top of the new culvert, we'll be able to complete the culvert for the eastbound lanes. This is another, I don't have a drone photo of this one, but this is another one we've got partially complete. This is between Executive Park Boulevard and St. James Drive. There you can see the existing structure with the creek underneath it. Here's a street view. So we have the new culvert right here. This will be when we shift traffic over to the future westbound side, it'll be over here, and that'll allow us to complete the eastbound side. Upcoming work, this is Midway. So we have this is the culvert 2 I just pointed out. There's a culvert 1 over here at that second entrance at Lowe's Foods. So that'll be phased as well. The temporary shoring wall right here, in the final pattern, we will have fill that goes out where that road is now. That's why that wall is needed. And then this MSE wall will begin shortly. And if you don't know what one of those looks like with a 90-degree bend, here's an example. And another item of future work, this is the Long Beach Road detour. So this detour is available to the contractor between September 15th and August 15th of the year they choose. So they've missed that window for this year. So this will likely be 2024 to 2025. They're currently placing fill in here to connect Old Long Beach Road, which we're calling Y14D. And then once they hit that window, traffic will be diverted through Old Long Beach Road, and that'll allow them to construct the bridge on Long Beach Road over 211. So here's an example of another activity is the westbound lane fill. So this is coming out of their borrow pit. We've paid out about 35% of the total borrow, so that equates to about 70% of the westbound side. being complete. Here's another picture that illustrates this on the west end. We've got the westbound fill going on through here, so one of our challenges is maintaining entrance traffic while they haul over there. So contractor utilizes flaggers for safety. Other items of work, we have some minor paving going on now, the wedging and widening, storm drain kind of happening all over the project. Temporary signals as we shift lanes into temporary patterns during the phasing. And of course, erosion control is a constant activity. So that said, any questions?
I've got a couple. This is going to be a divided highway, right?
Yes.
Okay. How do side roads get access? For example, there's a housing development under construction across from Sacred Heart Church, almost, but not quite, at the intersection of what we call Dozier Bypass. They are on the south side. How do they manage to go west when they pull out of their driveway? The whole development has a driveway onto 211. How do they go west?
So kind of typical without knowing specifically that location, typical of our design is having to take a right and then U-turning into the direction instead of a left. There's one of the design considerations for utilizing that is reduced accidents and reduced fatalities of accidents. So it's likely, without knowing specifically that location, having it memorized, they may have to turn right and U-turn around left.
Would they be U-turning at the traffic light, or is there, I don't know what these are called, J turns, or what is this going to look like?
Do you know that area specifically?
I would have to look at the plan, but I'm probably you're going to take it. Probably in that area right there that you're talking about, probably you're going to have to take that right, and where it might be before the canal, it might be after the canal, but it's more likely it would be at Dozier. I would think it would be a turn lane to make that turn to go back right.
So
Probably
you'd
back
be
left.
allowing U-turns?
Yes. I mean, throughout the project, we have U-turns all the way through it.
Okay, well, that gets to my next question, which is that there are a number of these issues, all up
Yes,
and
ma'am.
down, and I'm thinking about one of them is an apartment complex now with a housing development behind it called Abingdon Oaks.
Yes, ma'am.
They're on the east side. How do they get to go west?
Again, if they do
Or
not
south.
have a turn arrow or a turn lane in front of their subdivision, they will have to go down and make a turn and come back to go east or west, whatever way they're coming out of there. Prime example is Urgent Church. I've already talked to them. Pretty much when they come out, they will have to take a right, and they'll have to go towards St. James, and then they'll have to turn around and come back. That's executive. We do have emergency crossover at that for emergency vehicles, but it will be just for emergency vehicles. There'll be a gap in between the concrete island there.
Are you thinking about adding any traffic lights to facilitate access and egress?
No other than what we have right now, the ones we have where they're located.
One more question, and this is from many, many citizens who see the widening coming toward us.
Yes, ma'am.
And stopping at Robert Rourke 133, where it comes right up to the continuation of 211 onto what we call Howe. Okay, we got 4 lanes coming in to 2. Why?
I'm not the design engineer on the project, but I would assume they're anticipating a lot of that traffic is coming and going from 87 there onto 211.
The question that people ask is, well, why not just why didn't you stop the widening at either Dozier Bypass or up at where you're doing all the construction on Long Beach Road, that interchange? Why bring it all the way down to almost a dead end at Howe Street?
If you're going east on 211, when you get to 87, it's going to be, that interchange or intersection is very wide. So you're going to have a turn lane going to 87, then you're going to have a turn lane coming straight to Southport, and then you're going to have one on Robert Rourke. So you're thinking that there's 2 lanes coming, and it's going to continue, but the way we're moving the traffic around is really just 1 lane going straight. So it's not like 2 and then coming right to 1. Same way we're coming out, you're going to have 1 on Robert Rourke, you're going to have 2 maybe going 87, I mean 1 going 87, and you're going to have 2 that comes in and goes west. So we're not bottlenecking, it's going to make the intersection better. It'll be a whole lot better.
See that it'll be an improvement, but is there a traffic study that indicates that you have that much traffic that wants to come to that intersection and go left or right? I mean, you already have the 2 other ways to go left onto 87.
Yeah, well, this is, I'm not part of the design team, so I'm kind of speaking beyond my area of expertise, but I do know they project out with traffic studies. They look at the current traffic, project it out with future development, and that's all part of the design process. I know like at Robert Rourke, there's, talk of development in there, so, but.
My final question, I promise. Sidewalks, are you going to put in sidewalks from that intersection at least up to Walmart?
Yes.
It is, yes, that is in plan.
Okay.
And just to let you know, we can be available to come back, and if we have some specific questions prior to coming, we can have plan sheets potentially to have discussion about certain intersections. Be glad to do that. Say in 6 months, we can give another update on the project. Any specific questions you may have, we can be prepared to answer those. But be glad to answer any questions you have.
I don't have any particular, I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, I mean, you sure? Well, I was going to give a little historical perspective because I was on the board in 2016 when you came and worked with the board about the entrance that you're talking about coming into the city. Y'all shortened that so that you could preserve 11 more trees there that it was going past and coming further into town. They accommodated us by shortening that. So we're at Sandra Darby's office, it saves starting there, it saves those trees. So that was something specific that y'all worked on with us. I made a whole bunch of notes just to give some historical perspective about it. Also, y'all agreed to bury our power lines because our lines were up before y'all had designated it as a state road. So at no cost to the city, our power lines are being buried on that portion of the project. And in addition to that, they also, and all of this again was in 2017. Actually the end of 2016. They also worked with us and redesigned, did several design alliterations for the intersection at Long Beach Road where we have the satellite annexation of the Lowe's Food in that parcel. So y'all redesigned it, like you had several alliterations, and came back to us with things, and I feel like y'all felt as we did that you got a better solution by going back in and coming back. So that I wanted to say that. With regard to the sidewalk, that also was decided in 2016, and it works out that it's an 80-20. The state is paying 80% of the sidewalk. The city is paying 20% of the cost of it. That's a program that you have for new construction, that you work that out. And so if we could get, probably the city manager would find it helpful if she could get some dates on that, so to plan for budgeting because it's a capital budget for us. And then I just wanted to say, too, about the love. That's what I was telling these guys. I just want to thank y'all and your whole division. Anytime we have an issue, anytime you are doing anything around us, you include us, and we have a great relationship. And we're grateful for that, and I believe y'all set a standard in this state. Like I said, to you, I don't know what they do around the rest of the state, but y'all are awesome. So. Anyway, I think that's it.
A couple of things. Yes, I'm glad that the sidewalks are going to be there. Why isn't the state paying 100%? This is state
because that's
right of way.
it's not the program. That's not how the program works. They'll do the sidewalks if we'll commit partially. That's how it was back then. It's a specific details in that program, and the board voted to do it.
Oh yeah, I realize it's a done deal, but if there's something like that in the future, why wouldn't it be 100% for the state? I mean, it's your property.
Pedestrian pathways, whether it's sidewalk or multi-use path, the department will install those during construction, but the department doesn't maintain pedestrian pathways. And that is a statewide program where there's a percentage that municipality, if they so choose to have sidewalks or multi-use path, would contribute to that, that amenity.
Does not seem fair.
I just want to confirm one thing. So, and I'm pretty sure you've already answered this question. If you go up to Leland, you come out of one of the big projects and you make the right-hand turn because you can't go across and make the left, you only have to go a short distance, and they put in U-turn lanes specifically for that, so you don't have to go down to the intersection and have the person try to make the left-hand turn where the other guy is making the left-hand turn. They have to wait for traffic, and that clogs up the whole thing. Is there a separate lane for U-turners in your program, or are they? If you go to Long Beach Road, they have to turn around to go to let's say the Verizon store. And they sit there, and you can't make the left-hand turn to go to Long Beach Road if you're in the left lane, because it always gets jammed up because of the oncoming traffic coming at you. So my question is there an extra U-turn lane, or am I correct that you've not included the turnarounds like they have in Leland?
Well, I know nowhere would the queue for a U-turn or a left turn be in the through lane. So those two through lanes in both directions would be unobstructed by cars attempting to turn around.
Well, then they would have to have a third lane if you're not going to obstruct it.
Yeah, well, we have a single. Yep.
You still got to go up.
So at what we call this reduced conflict intersection, so there is typically one or two left turn lanes.
Correct, yeah.
And that's based on the amount of traffic that would turn.
So at Long Beach Road, as you're going out of town now, I get to Long Beach Road, there's two left-hand turns.
Correct.
The inner one is also a U-turn lane because they all have to turn around to get to those stores like Verizon. When they get in that left-hand turn, they stop. So if you're backed up into that, as we get more and more traffic coming down, I'm trying to figure out over the horizon how much of a problem that will be if you don't have a dedicated U-turn lane like you do in Leland.
Dan, you have any comment on that? But, you know, basically, there could be a protected left, but it depends whether it's signed for yield to right turns. That may be what's occurring there.
That's exactly what's happening. They have to, because people are turning from Long Beach, making a right-hand turn.
Correct.
To come towards town, and they have the right of way. And so they block the traffic up as you're sitting there waiting for the traffic light, and it turns red before you can get up to it.
I'll let Dan.
So your question, I think, is for our project, do we have exclusive U-turn lanes and intersections versus having them in combination, like you were speaking of?
Correct. I just
And
want to
so-
confirm that that's what, that it's, you don't have dedicated U-turn lanes.
So I think, again, that the project probably has both. And if you have, that's probably another, we can, if you have a specific question about a specific location and how they might, if that U-turn would have a separate U-turn intersection, we can answer that, but.
Let's do that then.
Okay.
And I'm going to mirror what Alderman Mosteller said. Regardless of who it is, if we're working out, I don't know, I think you guys work out of Wilmington, right?
Yes, sir.
Everybody in Wilmington has been great to work with. Thank you.
Would you guys leave your business cards, a pile of them, out there for the public to pick up and know who to call? You said we could call you anytime, but not after 5.
The other thing I think that I meant to say in mind is to understand that this project was completed. The last public meeting was October of 2017. So all of this design work has been on their website since 2018, and we all participated in those meetings. So this project was originally going to be built in 2018, and then because of Florence and other factors, y'all had to wait to build your reserves up so that you could then do it. But then you kept with the right-of-way purchase and the electric utilities, so that's why you're being as efficient as you are now. So I think those are all important factors that we've not had. It was cast in stone by 2018, design-wise.
I would like to point out that only one member of this board was on the board in 2017 and 2018. I did, during public comment, object to this project.
All right, well, no more questions. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Shows the importance of NCDOT and the engineers. I've said this many times, you're the most underappreciated discipline there is. You can name 5 actors, but you can't name 5 engineers. Without engineers, no roads, no TV, no cell phones, no electricity, on and on and on. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Item 2 on our agenda is an easement agreement with Atlantic Telephone Membership Corporation, and I'll call on City Manager Bonnie Theron.
Yes, Focus Broadband had come to me. They are trying to upgrade their entire internet service that would help the city of Southport with having faster service, better service, and they were looking for a piece of property that they could purchase from the city would be possible. And they came to me with about 3 or 4 different sites. Majority of those sites were in residential areas, and because of the look, should I say, of the equipment, I thought, I don't think that's exactly what the neighborhood would want and their neighbors. So we did have one that was offered that was on River Road, and where one of our lift stations is currently located. So I had Mr. Stanley and Mr. Zelenak go out and meet representatives of Focus to see if we could share that property through a permanent easement. And they both felt that it was definitely possible that could be constructed and it would not affect the lift station or any work they had to do on that lift station. So what you have in front of you today is an permanent easement agreement with Focus, a draft. Our city attorney has reviewed it, and we've done an appraisal on the worth of that property, or I should say a permanent easement. It's not the sale of it. And basically, in lieu of paying the $4,300, if I can remember right, they are willing to put $10,000 towards Wi-Fi, which the city's been looking to do in the downtown area and all of the parks. So, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for the city, for the citizens, for Focus customers, and it's an opportunity for us to finally get Wi-Fi and have this ability to upgrade the system. And Chris Ward is with us from Focus, and if there's questions or if you need him to address any issues, he's here to help us. And that's what I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ward?
I have one question. And it might be a city manager question instead of Mr. Ward, I'm not sure. But with regard to, does this have allow pole access, or is this underground installation?
It's all underground facilities. We're actually currently working with the town and Brunswick Electric to put everything underground that's downtown. Historically, up until the 211 widening, Southport was a part of a project that we were going to come into town to bury fiber optics. Currently, there's not a fiber optic provider in town. We have multiple businesses up and down the main roads that we've served because we brought fiber in for Novant and some cell towers in the past decade. But we've had more and more businesses and more residential customers ask us to come in to compete. And to be able to do that, the 211 widening project has kind of stopped all that. Now that we can actually get easements to extend our fiber from River Road up to Robert Wart, where the OLT site will be, hopefully, that will allow us to then expand fiber optics throughout the city. Don't necessarily have a timeline on all that because that's a dollars and cents capital expense budget item. But the OLT is the very first step that will allow us, once we go underground everywhere in Southport, to do service. We're also very closely working with Bill Clark Homes at Osprey Court, I believe is the name of the development that's been approved. Osprey Landing, I'm sorry. Osprey Landing. They're one of our partners, so they want our service in that community. So that's another opportunity that we have.
Am I correct? I'm sorry.
Okay, I just have a quick question.
Yes,
Will
ma'am.
this be, once you've got this, will the entire city be able to have Focus
Our
broadband?
plans are at some point to serve every portion of Southport. Like I said, we've got pockets of service already now. Having the OLT property will allow us to have enough fiber to serve the entire city.
I know residents along Bay Street have attempted to become your customers and have been disappointed
Yeah.
because for some, I don't know all the details of why, but
Yeah.
you weren't able to come down.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
will enable you to?
Yes, ma'am. The whole issue is a piece of fiber. Let's say it has 12 strands or 24 strands or 496, ever how many strands it has. We only bought 12 strands of fiber into Southport 20 years ago because AT&T and Spectrum or Time Warner had the service. We weren't looking to overbuild the town at that time, so we just brought it to our biggest business customers. So we're at capacity with our current fiber, and to have a switch in town will give us a large enough circumference that we can serve the entire city, and then as the city grows or downtown grows or other things happen, we'll be available for that. But we've been working closely with the town for years, trying to get some type of solution for Wi-Fi. We actually maintained the city's private fiber network. We built that out to interconnect offices throughout the city. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Southport. It's just this is the opportunity to now finally come in and become a third service provider. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, just for clarity for everybody, if I'm sitting out here in one of these Adirondack chairs and I pick up my phone, will this system have any impact on me being able to tap into a public Wi-Fi?
Most cell phone carriers provide or have a service called Wi-Fi calling, which means if you have a Wi-Fi signal, it doesn't matter what your cell signal is because
Right.
it'll go out over IP. This will allow that. And the way this all got started was all the different festivals you guys have downtown with vendors. People say we don't have Wi-Fi service. Well, Wi-Fi is not a service that's everywhere. Somebody has to put up equipment and pay for that service. So we've constantly been looking at options to do that downtown. And since that time, Ms. Bonnie, we have done multiple site visits in the parks and the areas where a lot of the public needs those services. And this will allow Wi-Fi service, which if you've got a cell phone and you have Wi-Fi calling capability, then you don't need a cell signal, because we all know how terrible the cell signal is in parts of Brunswick County, and that's no different for Southport.
So my last question is, and I heard you say that it's a dollars and cents issue and you got to figure out the timeline. Do you have any idea when the timeline would be established?
I can get back to you on that. We're currently working on our budget for '24. We go from calendar year instead of fiscal year in the middle of the year like a lot of municipalities, so we're currently working on that. Every year we have a 5-year plan. Every year we add another year to that. So Southport, I think, is in year 2 or 3, which will be 25 or 26 at this point. But I can't be specific until I talk to engineers.
No, I wouldn't ask you to be really specific. I'm just trying to figure out how we can brag that the city's doing this in conjunction with you.
Yeah.
But if we just say we're going to do it, and it's going to be 3 years, we need to probably, or 4 years,
Yeah.
we need to talk about that part. But
Well,
it's a great program.
I'm going to take that back to upper management at our office so everyone knows that this is truly a partnership, assuming we can get this approved and that the town would like to see this move quicker than 2 or 3 years.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to grant acceptance of a deed for a permanent easement on city-owned parcel number 22100002707 as outlined in the attached easement agreement, which has been reviewed by the city attorney, and in exchange accept the $10,000 towards the partial installation of Wi-Fi in the downtown area and in city parks.
Okay, there's a second by Mayor Pro Tem. The motion made by Alderman Allen. Any further discussion?
I would, well, I just wanted to mention, so the 10,000 towards the partial installation, we talked about the total cost. Do you want to just go over that so that people understand that the 10,000 is a large portion of that total cost?
Yeah, basically, they've given me an estimate of about 20, so this is half of it. So we'll be working with Focus about, see if we can start a phase-in and then ask for the other 10,000, unless I somehow can get something more out of Focus, ask for it for the next budget in your budget season. So, but at least I'm hoping we can start some phase-in work once they're done.
And typically, the $10,000 amount came from the fact that that's typically what we pay. We're talking about 3/10 of an acre. And when I say that, the USDA, because we use federal funds on doing a lot of stuff in financing, there's limits to what you can spend and have in plant facilities like this. But with most cities and municipalities, they just give it to us because they want us to come in and have the service. But like I said, we've been a longtime supporter of the city of Southport, and Ms. Bonnie told us how important Wi-Fi was. So that $10,000, instead of money going into a general fund to go against the Wi-Fi, is kind of what we came to an agreement on.
Any further questions, discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And Wi-Fi to the rescue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda will be H3, the building assessment consultant selection. And this is so crucial. It's a prevention program for our municipal buildings. And just think of what has happened to the old courthouse. You know, it was built in the mid-1800s, served Smithfield. It wasn't Southport at the time. Smithfield was the county seat. And then, the county seat in 1978 was moved to Bolivia. And then in 2016, the building was declared unsafe. So what we want to do is make sure all of our buildings have proper maintenance, upkeep, whether it's a roof or the plumbing or the air conditioning, heating, that type thing. And I look forward to this discussion, and I'll call on Tom Stanley, Public Services Director.
Well, I'm disappointed I don't get to tell you guys good evening or good night, so good afternoon. So a few months ago, we sent out an RFQ, put out an RFQ for building assessment. We had a few, participants, and we chose a company called High Caps. The price came in well below the budgeted price we had, so With that being said, there'll be extra money to start repairs because their price come in so much below the, budgeted price. And the plan is for, if you guys approve, for them to proceed, they're ready to start almost immediately, and the first place they're gonna hit is Old City Hall.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Stanley? Okay, I will,
Well, yeah, if you don't mind, just so that people kind of understand, how many buildings are we talking about, Tom? I'm sorry. I'll take, well, exactly, I mean, I don't think people fully understand how many properties are in the city limits that are owned by the city of Southport, including things like the historic jail or the
I don't have the list with me. Tom Z was going to be here, but something come up, so I'm kind of stepping in. I think
it was 11.
Yeah, I was thinking like 11 to 13.
Yeah.
And that does include the Maritime Museum. That does include the art gallery.
18 listed in the packet.
Yeah, okay, 18. Well, that includes the restrooms and everything as well. And that includes our leased buildings, the art gallery, Franklin Square Art Gallery, the Maritime Museum, the old jail. The JC building, the 50 cent, every city building, every city restroom, city hall, my building, every building that the city owns.
The importance of this study, in my opinion, is that it gives us a better understanding of how to budget as we move forward. So it's no longer, oh, we've got a roof that needs to be repaired, let's put some Flex Seal on it and move on our way. That's not the answer. That's what's been done in boards past. But this board, along with their city managers, taking the initiative to know exactly what the life of roofs are, or other mechanics within the structure. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think this is a great thing for us as we continue to budget for repairs. Oh, I'll go ahead and make the motion.
everything but the punchline.
Yeah.
Come on, Alderman.
Motion to approve the contract with HICAPS, not hiccups, from Municipal Building Services, HICAPS, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, is there a second? Okay, Alderman Lombardi, thank you. Yeah, I agree. This is an excellent program for our city and to prevent things from happening like it happened with the old courthouse. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Board, and thank you, Mr. Stanley. And good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thank you. So you want to do
Why don't we do this one?
Okay. Okay. Next on our agenda is the item H4, is the regional planning organization selection. The board, you've heard, and the public has heard presentations from Grand Strand Area Transportation Study Group, GSATs. You can go with them, or you can stay with the Cape Fear Area Rural Transportation Planning Organization, the RPO, and that's through the Cape Fear Council of Government. And the city has been part of the RPO for a number of years now. So I'll call on City Manager Bonnie Theron and to lead the discussion.
Yes, you have actually seen 3 presentations, Wilmington RPO, Grand Strand, and Cape Fear. And since that time, Wilmington has decided not to accept any new members. So really you're down to 2 groups, the Grand Strand and the RPO that you're currently using. Certainly you've seen the pros and cons. You probably have a history more than I do. In my remarks, I had just said that I like Grand Strand a lot. I thought there's opportunity, but that is just a recommendation. Role of a city manager is also always to make a recommendation. But then it's really up to you guys who you want to stay with, join with, whatever. So I think it's really up to you. And Mo's here, Maureen Meehan, in case there's other questions too.
Any questions or?
I was going to make a motion, but I'm going to make a motion that we actually stay with RPO.
I second that.
Second.
I would like to point out that what do we call this, GSATs? When we heard them, we heard about all their projects, and it's something like 20 or so, and they're all in Myrtle Beach. So this doesn't seem to be a...
No, that's incorrect. They are, that list you had there, because I clarified it for another
Oh,
board member,
okay.
are all North Carolina 100% projects, not Myrtle Beach.
Then for me, their amount of money and that sort of thing is dependent on the 2020 census, and if we were adding in, it also would have to be dependent on St. James and Oak Island coming on board. And I did understand that they said that it may be at the 2030 census that we're obligated to fold in, but I hope it's not that. If it does come to an MPO, we certainly have more in common, I feel like, with Wilmington. And then the other thing that it only is a requirement that a minimum of 50,000 people create an MPO. So 10 years from now, we may have a contiguous area and be our own MPO. So that's why I would vote to stay with the RPO.
I believe what I'm telling you is correct, is that it is based on the 2020 census, but it takes them 3 years to actually process it. So their budget was processed in 2023, which means the next time that they get another algorithm for their funds will be in 2033. And you're right, we need to be contiguous. There's a lot of other issues here, and if we ever become all contiguous, my understanding is that they can actually absorb us whether we want it or not. We can worry about that in 2033, but I'm sorry.
But remember that, Robert Carroll, 2033.
So my point is that I think the RPO will serve us well for now, and we can always change our mind, and they will always accept us should we go down the road.
And the Cape Fear Council of Governments, which houses the RPO, is one of our vital planning partners. So I feel like that's a strong part of this as well.
Yes, definitely the fact that the Rural Planning Organization is a part of the Cape Fear Council of Government. You know our good friend Wes McLeod, who's a part of the Cape Fear Council, and they've been so helpful to us, and this is a part of that organization. So I think the city of Southport would be well served to continue with the RPO. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, all right, okay. The next item on our agenda is item H5, and this will be the short-term vacation rental ordinance. A board decision will be needed on this, and I'll call on our planner, Maureen Meehan.
Good afternoon again. This text amendment was presented first at your August board meeting, and then had a presentation and a duly advertised public hearing at the September meeting. This amendment is to specifically amend Section 26I, Section 36G, and Section 38II, which removes the requirement for an annual short-term vacation rental permit. This will bring it into compliance with some judicial decisions that have been made from some cases around the state, and staff recommends the adoption of the proposed amendment as it is proposed.
All right, I'm going to change the subject just slightly, if that's okay.
Yes, any questions for Ms. Meehan?
I'm going to keep it on short-term vacation rentals, but I'll make this motion after I finish my rant. So for July 8th, I think it was July 8th of 21, 4 of you on this board voted to approve the ordinance, and so and then the other 2 of us were not yet here, although one of us did speak out in public comment regarding the ordinance. So since then, I think we've been challenged to enforce this ordinance. And I think that we need to enforce it. We've been challenged to enforce a lot of ordinances, but this one is really a problem. So this morning, as I was preparing for just the short-term rental aspect of this, I did a quick search of VRBO, HomeAway, Airbnb, and I came up with multiple properties. And I want to just show y'all how ridiculous this is that we're not enforcing this. First, and this is really all I need to show you. This is a home on West 11th Street. I found it on Airbnb. Keep in mind, July 8th, 2021 was the enactment of the ordinance. This home was built and completed in 2023. That's kind of ridiculous, right? Like, we've got an ordinance that says you can't do something, and people are doing it. So this is just one example. Here's another example over on Willis Drive. Primary residence, sold in June of 21, a little over a month before the ordinance. Was never rented until August of that year. Got a short-term vacation rental permit. Here's another one over on North Lord. This property, it kind of pays to be a real estate agent at times, sold in February of 23. After a quick text message to the agent, who is a good friend of mine, I just asked one question. Was it ever a short-term vacation rental prior to February of 23? And she said, no, the people lived there. It was their primary home. So that happened, and there's more. There's a lot more. These are ones that are just blatant and evident. And so I think that in addition to making the corrections in the ordinance, this board needs to really decide, are we making ordinances to make us feel better about what we're doing, or do we actually expect them to be enforced? And so today I'm just talking about short-term vacation rental. We could talk about right-of-way, you know, on and on and on. But today it's about short-term vacation rental. And really, what is our goal? Or do the four of y'all still stand against short-term vacation rentals? Do you still stand for the ordinance? And do you think that moving forward we should enforce it? And then, you know, we can ask all of us that question. I'm certainly in favor of it. I'm in favor of enforcing it, but we got to find out what that means. How do we actually do it, and what's being done? And then for those that have permits that got them prior to the permit process being illegal, are they really in compliance with the ordinance if they didn't rent those properties prior to the change? So that's the question I pose in addition to the text amendment that's being requested.
My question for Bonnie, I guess, is how do we enforce if we don't have a list of permitted properties? How would code enforcement go about enforcing?
Well, it's not just code enforcement, because Teresa over in Utilities does a lot of this, and I know she is totally frustrated because you would literally have to be on those Airbnb sites constantly in order to figure this out. And she has certainly, Teresa's gone way above trying to do that and keep up with it. Mo, I don't know if you were involved with this or not, but I know Teresa went and looked at a software package. I know Travis was involved with that. That could maybe help us do that. But at the time, I think they thought, was it that it was too expensive and it really wouldn't get us what we wanted? Or it's just because the staff is so busy, and this, of course, is before we got new staff members now, they just didn't have the time to keep looking at Airbnb and Vibro, and then there's all these other sites. And so, Mo, maybe you can address.
I was not part of the presentations or the meetings for that specific software, but I remember it being that it wasn't going to provide the input or the answers that we needed for the price that it was going to be. And I do know that at the same time, I was working with Teresa, and I was on Airbnb and the VRBO for 2 weeks just compiling, and I found 12 or 14. I knew we do have a list of permits that were issued, but again, we don't know if those are correct. Obviously, we have been shown today that some of those were issued to residences that were never short-term rentals. So that's where we are. Staff is just kind of like, how do we do this without spending so much time? But we did offer the properties that we found in July, we did send to Alliance to send letters explaining the ordinance, explaining the process, and if they hadn't been a short-term rental prior to the July 8th, 2021 date, then they would have to cease providing rental services. And then if they did not, then we would come in and follow up with the violation itself.
This was not, was not about current staff. I believe that current staff is doing everything that they can to keep things together. So some of this has to do with previous staff. I'm looking at a property right now that I know extremely well, West 9th Street, currently a vacation rental, was never a vacation rental, and staff got bullied into the permit, frankly. And, you know, so this was not about our current staff.
What's the penalty?
I'm sorry.
What's the penalty if they do it?
It would be the normal violation for any code enforcement violation.
What's the penalty?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean,
sorry.
is the penalty such that once we start whacking people, they'll stop because the others, you don't want to get, they know now we're enforcing it? Or is the violation, you know, $15, and what do I care? Keep hitting me with it. I'm making more money in an hour than that's worth.
No, I don't think it's, we'll find out. I don't think it's not as low as 15, but it's like
I want to say
100.
it's close to 25, if I remember.
Again,
$25. Is that, are we handicapped by Raleigh for that? Or is that just something we made?
Well, it's also, it escalates as the number. I mean, it's the first violation is this, the second's this, the third is this. I mean, eventually it gets very real for all
and
code
I think
violations.
it's a daily, it's a daily you know what I'm saying? It accumulates daily.
Well, rather than use your time for this, if you could get back to us with what that all looks like, I really would appreciate it. If it's daily, that's a lot nicer. There's parking tickets that cost more than $25, okay? And some of these are flagrant.
A question, and I believe this is something we'd have to pass on to the city attorney. Is there anything wrong with requiring registration without having to pay a fee? And our problem is that there was a permit fee, and that's what we are eliminating. Am I correct?
No, well, let Mo.
It was a free permit. We couldn't charge for it, but it was for short-term rentals. We are enforcing it through our zoning ordinance, so we can ask that they get a zoning permit as any other use throughout the city.
This is how we can keep track without having to study Google every day. Is that right?
Let me just say, we are not the only municipality having an issue with short-term. That is a statewide issue. That is a national issue. You cannot keep up with these people. They will do everything under their power to get around this. So we are, I know that Teresa and I know the Planning and Development Services, they're working with the other towns to try to come up with something. But in today's world, there's just, you're going to find gaps. Definitely, but we can take another look at the ordinance and strengthen it.
Bonnie, you mentioned software. What kind of software were you talking about?
It was, it's called, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's called Grantius. They do a lot of different software, especially in planning and development areas. And certainly if you wanted to have them come to a presentation, they can, but I had to, weigh what the staff was saying because they're not cheap. for the price, it just seemed that wasn't going to give us 100% of what we were looking for.
Was it,
And so,
was Alderman, was your question answered about, was your question, are our hands tied?
Well, my follow-up question is going to be, I asked you, what are we doing now? And a follow-up question for the manager is, what's legally, is our total guardrails that we're allowed to do? And if that means whatever the guardrails are now, if we don't find them to be sufficient, that's what you do for a legislative package over the horizon. We're not just asking for money, we're asking for bills to be changed. So we can do that. We can start with what we have and then build on that.
Yeah.
I would,
Okay.
so I'll tell the story that started this. I met a lady recently who moved into Southport because she loved the friendly neighborhood feel, is what she said. And so she started to complain about the neighbor who was renting their home short term. And that's one of the ones that I just mentioned. And now she doesn't even want to move into the house because the house next door is a short-term vacation rental. And she'll never know the neighbor, and they come in and out. And so when she was telling me the story, because I know most of what sells here, I asked for, and I realized that this was a brand new house. It was just completed this year. How could it possibly be a short-term vacation rental? So, that's the idea behind it. The reason why this previous board enacted this is because they were protecting one of the things that makes Southport so special. The reason why I live here and raise my kids here, the reason why all of us moved here, the reason why Miss Kelly came back, right? So protecting what we all find so valuable. And now I don't know that, besides what Maureen mentioned about a few that might have been recently reached out to, I don't think we've had another scenario where we've done anything. So we create ordinance that does nothing, and we do nothing, and much like right-of-way, which I'm not talking about today, but much like right-of-way, there's already ordinance that exist, and people were asking for our guidance. Well, why ask for our guidance if ordinance already exists? It's there. We have to enforce what we have. And if we don't have a way to enforce it, we need to find a way.
I'm glad for your rant. But as we've also heard, it is for the good of this city and the people who live here already to find a way to enforce this. Among other things, it is one of the reasons why we have affordable housing shortage. Why have a long-term rental in the house that you own when you can short-term rent it for $200 a night? So this is a major contributor to our affordable housing shortage, our workforce housing.
Yep.
So where are we on this? Are we going to further investigate, or
I
what?
think we need you to do the amendments right now, and then what the staff's going to have to regroup and come back to all of you, and we will have a full history. We didn't know this was going to come up. A full history of what everybody else is going through, software packages, and we'll give a full report to you on what we legally can and cannot do, but we can't do that today.
Well, what we need to do today is just go with the motion that we need to become in compliance with state law.
Yeah, and I'm happy to make that motion, and I really appreciate staff taking the willingness to, or being willing to go and research this for us and find out how we enforce our ordinance. Right now, I'd like to make a motion to approve the land use consistency statement to remain consistent with current general statutes and the zoning text amendment regarding short-term vacation rentals and homestays as presented.
Yes, a second by Mayor Pro Tem, and of course the motion by Alderman Carroll. Any further discussion or questions?
I just read something funny that could apply. Maybe we should just put a sign up in our right-of-way in front of these houses, and the sign says, if you are breaking the law, we will hold you in low esteem.
LOWE. I apologize. I should have done that to a journalist. No, but I hear you, Madam Reverend Alderman. Yes. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we have our city attorney with us, so we will go down to item 9, and this will be the discussion on political signs and the UDO requirements, and I'll call on the city manager, Bonnie Theron.
Yes, Alderman Davis has requested this item on the agenda about political signs and placement and constitutionality and Supreme Court. Attorney Brady's on vacation, so I do thank him very much for taking this time out of his vacation to answer all the questions that all of you have, but you know, I think Alderman Davis has to address this.
Okay, our UDO has a variety of rules about political signs, and one of them is only one political sign per yard, in other words, per piece of property. And not only did this just seem unfair to me and unconstitutional, I've checked with the First Amendment Center, a First Amendment coalition organization, and the unanimous response is that's unconstitutional. And I had found a law that I thought was on point. Our city attorney did not feel that it was after he researched. And then one of those organizations pointed me to what's called, in short, the Ledoux decision that is right on point. And it was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court in 1994 and has not been overturned. And the finding was whatever good intentions the city may have had, among them, for example, visual pollution of lots and lots of political signs in a yard or lots and lots of any kind of opinion signs, it is unconstitutional to limit a property owner's right to express political opinion, and that extends to political signs. And as an example, suppose I want 2 signs. I'm backing 2 candidates. I like Ike. I like Bob. Okay, our UDO says I have to pick one. I can like Ike, but I can't say that I like Bob. That's a violation of my First Amendment right. So that's why what I would like to see us do, considering that we have taken an oath when we were sworn in, that we're going to support the Constitution, the laws of the state, that we not enforce this and take whatever is the appropriate action to remove this from our UDO. And it would seem to me logical that if one of our laws is unconstitutional, that it does not require going through the UDO amendment process. It just should not be there, and we should be able to remove it here and now.
That was a motion, I think.
Yes.
Well, I think the motion is.
Okay, let's
So,
we need to hear from Ray.
if we decide that we don't want to have this on the books, what is the best appropriate, most constitutional?
well, my thought
What is the best and constitutional process for getting this off our books?
So my thought is, I agree with you. I think that specifically the political sign ordinance has a lot of work to be done. Right now, the planning board is actively working on sign ordinances, and I believe that the political sign ordinance is a part of what they will be discussing. So I think it's important that we leave that with them, for them to recognize if in fact it is illegal, that it needs to be removed, and any other changes I'd love for them to come back to us with. In the meantime, I agree with you that this is something we likely cannot enforce, but certainly should not enforce. I don't know what the intent was at the time, but right now I disagree with it. So if we could just not enforce this ordinance for the time being, and then have the planning board come back to us with a recommendation on this language and other language within the political sign ordinance, I think that may be the best path forward.
We just did that with the short-term rental ordinance. That's the exact tact we took. We did not enforce the permitting, and we are only now getting to actually being able to do the text amendment. So that's the same path that we've used in the past.
Can we hear from the attorney? I'd just like to hear him say, does he think it's constitutional or not?
Brady, you're up.
Okay, go ahead.
They want to hear about the political.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So looking at some of the stuff that Lowe's sent me over, and also Reed v. Gilbert, I don't think the sign ordinance is per se unconstitutional, but I do think, and I think you guys have hit a lot of these points, that it is quite restrictive. And this certainly needs to be something that should be addressed, and probably the best time to go and do that, obviously, would be after the new board comes on board, and sometime in January we go and revise our whole sign ordinance, including the political sign portion of it. So with that being said, I do have a feeling to the extent that if it was ever challenged, a court could go and say that one sign per lot is overly restrictive, because perhaps 3 signs could still go and satisfy the justifications of just having one sign. And usually those interests are things like aesthetics and safety reasons. That's usually the reasons of why municipalities will go and limit the number of signs, just so you don't have 15 temporary signs in one residential lot. So my recommendation to you all as an option would be to just not enforce the sign ordinance, or the political sign ordinance for now, until we can go and get something drafted and approved by the planning board, and then sent to you all with hopefully some sort of adoption once the new board is sworn in and all that.
I respectfully disagree. In Ladue, the summary is the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the display of political and other types of signs on residential property is a unique, important, and protected means of communication, and towns cannot restrict the display of such signs. Restrict, of course, would apply to the number of signs. And there's other language in this restriction that addresses specifically the fact that the town wanted to limit this because a whole bunch of signs were just political visual pollution, and neighbors didn't agree and were offended by seeing those signs and so forth. And yet, very specifically, you can't tell somebody what kind of an opinion they can express, and political signs are quite obviously an expression of political opinion.
I guess my comments are that I don't disagree that it may, I don't know if it is or isn't. We've got a lawyer, we've got Lowe. But at the end of the day, what is our intent? And our intent is to do the right thing. And the right thing is allowing people to display more than one political sign in their yard. So for that reason, I say at this point, let's allow the planning board to do what they do, go through that process, and today just not enforce the ordinance as it is written. Or is that sufficient?
I honestly don't see the planning board's role in this, other than that under normal circumstances, we've set it up so that the planning board is the avenue for changes to the UDO. However, if something appears to be illegal and we wait until January, I don't want to wait until after the election, no. But we would be putting on the planning board a legal decision about whether they're going to advise us, yes or no, to do this based on legality. And that's not their job, that's not their responsibility, and I'd hate to put that on them.
Can we, I don't think,
Everything that the planning board does and with regard to the text amendment process, number one, I believe it's regulated by state statute in how we do text amendments. So I don't believe that we have the discretion to create a new process at the table here. The other thing I would say about that is that everything they do has a legal aspect to it within the UDO. They create a violation ordinance, they do all kinds of things. I would hope that with regard to this, now that this has been this conversation, I'm sure that our planning Meehan, yeah, that's the, anyway, would consult with the attorney with the sign ordinance as the planning board comes with their recommendation, which often happens with corrections and that sort of thing.
My question would be, would the timing of the signs being erected and being taken down be the same?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's in state law.
That's okay.
So I think we keep the ordinance, except if someone wants to have more than one sign in their yard, I think that doesn't really need to be enforced, but I think the rest of the ordinance should be enforced, and signs should be in certain places and they shouldn't be in others. But in someone's yard, if they want more than one sign, I think we can, and the ordinance says only one sign, that's a little too restrictive, and we certainly can just not enforce that. And plus, it's in someone's yard, so I think we can certainly back off on that. It's not like they're down there at Whittler's Bench, so which would of course not be right. So anyway, any further discussion? Any further comment?
I just want to comment that I actually agree with Lo, but I'd like to be able to move on. And so I think the bottom line here is that I think we're all in agreement that we not enforce the current law. I'm not hung up about it going to the planning board, because we can send the planning board all the information that they need, and if they don't do the right thing, at least in our minds, then we just don't agree with them. They're only an advisory group. They're not the decider of the fact. So we can go back to the School of Government. I probably can fill this room up with reasons why I think that law is unconstitutional, but not tonight. So I would like to say, I would like you to make a friendly amendment change that we do not enforce the law until we're not enforcing the law until we resolve this issue long term, and that we move forward with the process, and that we have the ability to inject our thoughts into this process. I'm assuming that through our liaison people, we can inject all kinds of ideas into it, or however we want to do that. Somehow we have to have the bully pulpit to say why we think what we do. We'll figure that out.
I'd like to recommend a friendlier motion that would, a friendlier motion A friendlier
I don't have
amendment.
a formal motion on the table.
Okay, so there's no motion, okay, no motion on the table, but what I would like to say is that it's my recommendation that not that we not enforce the law, but that we not enforce the portion of the law that Lowe believes and you believe, and I may or may, I don't know, may or may not be illegal. I think that that's the portion, the number of the signs. So everything else about the ordinance would still apply. It's just simply the number of signs that we would not enforce. On residential, correct. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
To the city attorney, I just want to make sure to cover the staff's, is that legal that we do not enforce something that's in an ordinance with the board voting?
That's going to be the way to rectify it, is to not enforce it, because we can't just strike that today or, hypothetically next week, since, by statute, there's procedures that we have to go and follow, not only according to 160D, but also our UDO. But how we go about doing that was just to not enforce it at all in terms of the number of signs, political signs, on private residential property, which will get us through and after the campaign season. And then we can, that'll be one of the first things we try to go and do when the new board comes on, is to get the sign ordinance underway, at least as it pertains to the political sign portion of that.
I don't have a formal motion on the table. Do I? I started just talking.
Then I'll make a motion that directs city staff to not enforce the portion of the political sign ordinance related to the number of signs on a private property owner's property. Not in the right of way.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We're gonna, if you have private property and you have signs there, the number of signs is not limited to one.
I'll just again, to go back on the rant about short-term vacation rentals, I would be surprised if this portion of the ordinance had been enforced anyway, based on the short-term rental ordinance that went into effect in July of 2021.
Any further rants or discussions?
So I can have.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
So I can have a sign that says I like Ike, and I can have a sign that says I like Bob, and I can keep them up.
Correct.
Okay.
And Marie. You like Marie?
Well, I always like Marie.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously.
My only
Alderman
side comment is, and I'm asking the manager this, how do we communicate this to the people? Because right now, we're the only, unless they're dialed in, how do we communicate that they can put them back up?
I'm sure I will work with Cheyenne, who will do a big blitz, and meanwhile, I will tell the code enforcement officer not to do anything with those. And may I say on behalf, I think of all of us, thank you, Brady, for taking the time from your vacation on this. I appreciate it.
We all do, Brady. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brady. All right. Excellent. Get your political signs in the yards as soon as possible. And I like Ike. That's great. Let's get that out today. So now we will go back to item 6, forensic audit. And I will call on Alderman Alt.
So as the years have gone by and we've looked at policies and procedures and lack thereof of policies and procedures, this motion that or this proposal I'm making here is not because I think there's skullduggery and money has been diverted. That certainly is not the case. What I'm saying is that and I've talked to the manager about this. I did not ask her opinion, so I'm not sure what it is. But on this particular topic is that if we do these forensic audit on these 3 projects and we track how we've actually managed the money, what column they went into, did they go into the column correctly? At the last minute, do we get asked to move $90,000 from one spot to another? And we all went, what? Why are we doing that? All of those things. I would like to be able to use the forensics on these 3 projects to see how we can improve our financial house and our policies and procedures. And that's the basic game plan here. Go ahead.
Are you good? I mean, you're through. I didn't mean to interrupt, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm through until you finish talking.
Okay, good. So this is my perspective on it, Rich. Is some different, I think. I think as a small town transitioning into the 21st century, our board has prioritized the need. I'm agreeing with you on that, for policies to help clarify our processes and codify best practices. I 100% agree with that. Understanding the need to continue to create and update more policies. The past 6 months, we've adopted city purchasing policies, fund balance policies, procurement policies, travel policies, write-off policies, and many more, several more. Regarding a forensic audit, it is my understanding that the key takeaways, because I did, in what I've read, the key takeaways that define it, at the end of the day, beside it being an examination of financial records, it said that usually a financial audit is chosen instead of a regular audit if there's evidence that would be collected to be used in court. So I don't think that's what you're talking about. I could be wrong, but what I would say is what I recall about the House Street Sewer Project is that the changes that were required because of some NCDOT specifications that were not included in the original project design and the contract, and resulted in increased project costs. And Representative Miller, of course, was able to help facilitate state funding to help us bridge that gap. That House Street project design and specifications were part of a third-party engineering firm. We were created by a third party, and that was part of the reason that particular project was part of the reasons we wanted to hire our own engineer and have staff engineer, and that was sort of the precipitating factor in that. And so I feel like what we're really talking about is policies and procedures, and so that we can have policies that help us with project planning, understand the needed specifications, and successful contracts. So I would not be in favor of spending $10,000 for a forensic audit for these 3 projects. What I would be in favor of is having the city manager have our professional staff, which includes our engineers, our public works director, and the new finance officer, to review, since these were big, admittedly, these were some big projects for our community, right? So I think that would be great, and have them do their sort of post-mortem of each one of those projects, and then come back with recommendations to determine best practices and create policies to ensure greater success going forward. That's where I am on it.
This aspect is really limited to how the money moves around. We've had this discussion years ago that the House Street project, the contract that was written for the engineer was so poor, even with all of those issues, we couldn't sue him. The project was for the guy digging the hole and moving the pipe was so poorly written that there was no timelines, there was no benefit, there were no bonuses, no penalties, no end date, no nothing. And so I'm not looking to change those. Those are different. I'd love to have our engineers work on that part. But this part right here is the money. When I sit in a room and the finance officer walks up at the last day and says, I'm going to ask you to move 90,000 from here to there. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out, why are we moving 90,000 from one place to the next? Why are we doing these things? And there's no explanation to this day. I am not commenting about Taylor Field and whether it should be done or not. It was done, it is done, it looks like to be a good project. It's not the Taylor Field aspect of it, it's the money that was involved in that does not appear to have come correctly through the process. And I would like our new auditor to help us understand that, and which was why I asked them, could they do this, and would it cost us $1 gazillion? And $10,000 is not a lot of money because there's 3 different projects here. To look at that and understand where we are. We're not doing this correctly. And we have to figure out how we can bring this up. The auditor is not going to help us with that unless we pay him to do that, because we hired him to do just a general audit.
I would ask that, we've got a new financial director. I'd rather see first, let the financial director review that and come back, and then if they feel that they need a deeper dive I would ask that we do that first, you know, and then see what that staff recommendation is out of that. That's what I would ask.
Yeah, I agree with Karen 100%. You know, the definition of a forensic audit is an examination of financial records to find illegal financial activity. I mean, if you say, I don't believe there's been any financial misfeasance, but I still want to do a forensic audit, then I don't really understand that thought process. And I think our staff is more than capable of going in and getting the answer to these questions.
Bonnie, in your opinion, is our staff capable of doing this?
Well, first of all, I've never seen a forensic, I mean, I know about them, but I've never seen it done. There is, but I think the other thing is that what we're going to find is, and I don't think there was anything illegal, but I do think there was a lot of problems with the way financially, especially Taylor Field, was handled. I will definitely tell you that, and for whatever reason. But that staff is gone. I mean, it's gone. And so what we are trying to do, and I think Lance will definitely be able to help, is come up with policies and procedures and how we're going to get above and beyond those types of things. But, you know, the other two I've never heard financial issues with, but Taylor Field is a mess.
But that's fine, but that's in the past.
Yeah.
It's done. Is our new staff capable of doing this?
I sure hope.
Because we're talking about procedural things is, I think, what we're talking about.
It's procedural, it's policies, it's all that weren't in place. But you also have to have somebody financially who knows how to manage. And one of the other things, I know we were just talking this morning, and I know all of you know this is an issue, and since we've hired the 2 engineers, it's become a lot better, is you have department heads who are, their expertise is fire, their expertise is police, their expertise is park and rec. They are not project managers. And they've been allowed to have to take on that role with the help of sometimes consultants who, in my opinion, have not been the best. And, you know, there's definitely been issues with that too. So we got to learn to correct it. We got to learn to be very careful who you're hiring for consultants, but Bob and Tom Z have been awesome about trying to help the staff not have to worry about that as much. So that's another issue.
What I've been looking for with this, and I don't know that a forensic audit is the right path. It does seem like if we can task our new finance director at least first with this, but all 3 of these projects went off the rails somewhere, somehow, and ended up costing us an awful lot of money. You know, change orders, just changes in what we needed to do. And with House Street, you know, the state swooped in and said, hey, wait a minute. Well, where were they first thing around? When
That's because we didn't have a contract with the state, but that's not part of why I'm asking for, that's a different part of the problem. I mean, we never even were in attendance when the bids were open. That is crazy talk. But that's not part of this project right now. We were not in attendance when the bids were open. We, the city. We allowed the engineer to do that. And I'm thinking from all that project from start to bottom had problems. And while I don't know that any money was taken, I'm not going to put my money down on the table and nothing was taken. Because that project, from the time they ripped the envelopes open to the last piece of dirt going in, you couldn't have asked for a more bollocksed up project. And as we heard from the manager, Taylor Field had a host of financial issues that are outstanding there. If our new finance officer can wedge this into everything else, because he's basically walking into a house that has no policies and procedures, and he has, you know, we're not too late, soon from now, we're going to be in budget season. I don't know how many hours of the day that he has to do this. And so I'm asking for a mere 10,000.
What date was the House Street project contract signed? Wasn't it 2018?
Tom, do you remember it all?
I'd like to point out that Mr. Stanley was not Public Works Director at the time.
Well, that's also a large problem. Everything you're talking about, those people are not here.
I don't know when the engineering contract was signed. It may have been 2018. I know that I was not Public Service Director or even Assistant Director at the time. I also know that when the bids were open, city staff was in the room.
Well, Tom, I apologize then, because I was specifically told by somebody I thought was in the know, who specifically told me that we left it to the engineer, because I asked at the time, can I see the envelopes? And can I see the timestamps that they came in and all the things? So if the low bid was the last guy who came in 5 minutes after, that's an indication that something bad happened. If the staff is there, I trust them to oversee that.
I will say that all the bids were sent to the engineering firm, so I cannot confirm when they were given to the engineer. On time, the day of, 3 months before, I don't know, but I do know that when the engineer came, it was the Indian Trail Meeting Hall. When the engineer came, I was there and the previous Public Works Director was there. I'm not sure if the city manager was there. I'm wanting to think in my head that he wasn't, but I do know that the engineering firm, all the contractors, myself, and the previous Public Service Director were at Indian Trail when the bids were open. We did not see them prior or receive them prior.
Thank you, Tom.
Anything else for me?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, question is to Bonnie, is it fair to task the finance director with this at this point?
Fair what? To ask him?
Instead of a forensic audit per se, to ask him to review these projects and see where things went bad.
How long you been here? I mean, that's the problem, right? It's timing is everything. I mean, he's been here 3 weeks. He's got to learn a new software systems. You know, he's up to his ears.
But we're looking at policy and procedures to come out of this, so there's not a moral imperative. It's the data's going to be the same in 3 months as it is today. It's the same data.
But for him to look, all he's going to look at is the financials. For him to do that and drop what he's doing right now, which is learning the system, no, I would say no. I've got to get him up to speed so when we get into the budget mode, he's ready to move. I mean, he's just learning everything.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's no imperative for him to do it right now because the data's going to be the same 3 months from now. That's what I'm trying to get at. The other piece of that is, in addition to that finance, Rich, which I think is a legit thing to have him look at, just to trace how it was all done and for best practices, is to have our engineers, along with Tom, review those 3 projects. And Taylor Field was Heather, so you'd want Heather to do that, to have input, I would think. But also have them, again, there's not a moral imperative to have it done. The data's the same, but I think that might contribute to the policy and procedures for how we do it in the forward and what the contracts look like and all that.
We would be spending $10,000 now, and I realize it's taxpayers' money, and we can't be frivolous with a dollar. Before this gentleman over here can get to this, it'll be July 1st, at a minimum. At a minimum, because as we learned last year, we have to have the budget cycle started maybe a little bit earlier this year and go through that, and we got a brand new guy at the helm here. We're going to have to get through all of that. So if the board is happy with waiting another 8 months, 9 months to do this, then that's what democracy is. I'm just saying that these projects have been pushed to the side because we really didn't want to look under the hood. That's how my feeling is, and I want to look under the hood, so we don't do it again. I'm not looking for a scapegoat. I'm not looking for finger pointing that 14 people did this wrong and they all could have said something. I want to make it so we don't do it again.
Well, I fully understand that conversation, and I think we have professional staff that can help us with this. That's what would be my...
Well, just to, I appreciate your comment, Rich, about not trying to find a scapegoat, but, here's the problem. If we have the information, not that there is any information to find, but if we have the information, we have an obligation to find this. If there is something found, we'd have an obligation to have a scapegoat. Does that make sense?
Oh, trust me.
So,
if we find somebody's done something wrong, I want to be there when Chief Goring locks them up. Yeah. Okay? But I have nothing to indicate that's ever happened. I have no indication that any employee has ever done anything wrong like that.
Do we have a motion?
No, we don't have a motion yet, but from what I'm hearing is that if we as a city don't have the staff to look into this, if we can't dissect an issue and use that in terms of Mayor Pro Tem to improve our policies and procedures and that type thing, then we may need more staff. I mean, because we should be monitoring what we're doing while we're doing it, and then afterwards as well. So I really feel that our city staff should be given at least the first opportunity to look at this and do this, and if they need further help or further consultation, then we can go towards that. And there is no timeline on this. There's no timetable. It doesn't have to be done tomorrow, so they can work this into their schedule of what they're doing as well. I mean, it's like writing a term paper. It takes time to do it. So anyway, I'll entertain a motion if there's not any further discussion.
Well, just for the record, I'm going to make a motion knowing what the outcome of the motion will be. I'm going to make a motion that we dedicate the 10,000, I'm sorry, there's no total. Oh, the $10,350, I'm sorry, to do the forensic audit on the House Street project, the Bay Street project, and Taylor Field.
Okay, we have a motion for the forensic audit. Is there a second? Okay, hearing none, the motion does not go forward.
I actually would like to, I think, make a motion on this, and I think that our instruction to city staff should be that they research this this subject, and if in fact it is overwhelming and they don't have the time, come back to us with a recommendation. And if in fact we have to go through a process with a third party, then we can entertain that. But I'd like city staff to look at it, see if they can make a recommendation to us to either move forward with what Alderman Alt is recommending, or they could do it in-house.
Does this require a motion?
He just made a motion, yeah. And seconded by Mayor Pro Tem, that city staff look into this, and then if they feel like they need further assistance, they come back to the board and give us that update. Is that a fair statement, Alderman Carroll? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good discussion. Next item on our agenda will be Creek Committee. Alderman Alt.
This is pretty straightforward. All I'm asking us to do is to direct the manager to form a work group with the city staff, the county public health, and the state water quality experts to look at specifically the pollution readings at Cottage, Bonnet, and Prices Creek, and to come up with any recommendations for posting of signs in that area. The latest report that I got, I think yesterday, was very unusual. I'm hoping I'm reading it correctly, is that where we are putting in the kayak ramp, that water has a very high level of E. coli in it. So we probably, if we're going to put people in that spot, we probably need to look at what that means. And I would hope that the recommendation that came back to us would include that we would vote on giving the manager the power to put the signs up whenever it reached X number of E. coli, or I always mispronounce the other word, I can't get it, whatever it is, for brackish water. And that we don't have to vote on this every time. The manager just does it as part of their job.
I would think that we could have some kind of policy developed that triggered all that conversation. Again, I'd like to lean into our professional staff, our engineers, our public works director, to have them, rather than us designate a committee per se, but instruct them to go forward and come up with a plan. I'm sure they would want to engage with DEQ, want to engage with the health department, all public health and all of that. So I don't know, do we need a motion?
Well, my point is that all those people that I picked, I've already talked to them, and they're all part of the puzzle. So I just want, for the motion, I want to make sure that they're all in a room so we can say that they were all in the room. Or if one of them decides they don't want to play with us, that we ask them that magic question and we got that answer back. There's one of them that may not want to do that, or may not have the time, I shouldn't say that, may not have the time to do that.
Can you explain more about this? Have we talked to the county and the state? Are they willing to do this?
I've reached out to the state, and they have given me some levels that are required, but the problem is there's different, depending on the type of water, there's different levels and degrees and all that type of thing. So we've been working with a new lab out of Colorado that's been looking, and Tom's been great about working with the creek watchers about taking samples that we've been sending to this lab. We just got the newest results back, and we're going to be having a Zoom meeting with the lab in Colorado, because you can interpret these things and it sounds awful, but Tom and the two Toms and I already did this with the Colorado lab. It's amazing because what you think it's saying is not what it's saying. So I really am looking forward to having that meeting. But, the thing is, until I get definitions, I can't, the state, there's too many, if you have this, it's that. If it's this, it's that kind of thing, back and forth, back and forth. And the county health has said, you got to talk to the state. So
So I mean, who's going to be on the committee? And what are they going to do? I don't understand.
Well, my intention is that they would come back to us with a recommendation and suggestions of a policy, and that we give the manager the ability to go forward with this. So if, apparently Boiling Springs figured it out. So they have one of their lakes that is, polluted. It's polluted naturally, but it's polluted. Doesn't make any difference how it got there. It was 450, where 250 is, I've been told, the limit. And they have their person go out there and post a sign. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, but it really struck me when I drove down 9th Street one day and some kids were in the stream right at the lift station. And I thought to myself, well, what should I do? Should the old man get out and tell the kids to move on? That's not going to work out very well. Should I call the police? Well, we haven't told them what to do. So I get a nice young officer and I'm saying, you need to tell these kids to move on because it's polluted. Well, that's not going to work out either. So as I'm sitting there pondering this whole thing, fortunately the kids moved on. However, I think we have an obligation as stewards to do something, to post a sign that says, don't play in the water. If that means we post all the way down, but we have to start this process because we've known this issue is an issue for over 2 years and we still don't have a policy or procedure to post wherever it may be. So Price's Creek is like this. Sometimes it's really polluted and sometimes it's not. I don't know why that is. I'm hoping the smoke test will eliminate our pipes. But whatever the issue is, it's polluted. So those are two separate things. We know it's polluted. We should do something. I'm asking us to direct the manager to bring whoever she thinks is appropriate into the group and to report back to us in a reasonable time so we can get at least the sign in. After that, we can, time is more on our side.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded motion.
Well, we're doing sampling of Cottage Creek now, correct? And you said we just got back the first results?
no, there's been quite a few. And Tom, how many times have you gone out, with the new lab? Because the new lab's awesome. Twice, yeah.
Well, we've had reports from other labs.
Yes.
And even with the new lab, the Cottage Creek, if you're assuming that 250 is the threshold, 2,500. Okay, 2,400. That's what I don't know, and I would like public health or somebody to tell us. If a kid goes in that water, puts his hand in the water and puts his hand to his mouth, is that a problem? Is that something that we need to put the sign up? And we can't just keep dilly-dallying with this issue. Because it's not like we didn't know. We do know.
Well, and staff has been working on getting this information, some of this information, but I think it's a good idea and it's a natural segue from them. They've already been doing sampling to come up with a policy and recommendations, I think.
That's all I'm doing.
We don't need a committee with the state and the county to do that. We're doing testing. If it's above limits, then let's put up some warnings. A bunch of kids playing in the creek are not going to be the least bit deterred by a sign somewhere. And we already know that the inland waterway is closed to shellfish harvest and farming because of E. coli pollution. So I'm sure there is E. coli in the creeks. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It seems like we're pulling out a 30-07 to shoot a fly.
But Bonnie, do you need something from us that says, because I do think we want policies and procedures around this.
Well, I mean, you can. It's just a simple, motion to have the city manager and the staff work on putting together motions of policy. We'll do it anyways, but if it makes, that works.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to follow exactly what the manager said.
I second it.
And I'm going to leave it to the manager to decide, not us. who needs to be on the panel, because some of these subject matter experts are not within the city government officials, and we need them to tell us the magic numbers.
Okay, we have a motion via the city manager and Alderman Alt, and second by Mayor Pro Tem, that we are going to look into these creeks and look at the different levels of contamination. Our city staff can do that, and any consultants that they need, whether state, federal, county, and they'll set up policies and procedures to post warning signs and that type thing to keep our whatever's required to keep our citizens safe. I mean, I'm a public health doctor, so I love the discussion. Y'all can talk about this all day, and I'm fine with it. That's great. I mean, it's like, I guess, Huck Finn. I didn't have to paint that fence at all. Thank you, you know. Or was it Tom Sawyer? I know it was one of them. But anyway, so I thank y'all for that. And we have the motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And next on the agenda is the affordable housing. I can give just a brief update, then I'll call on Alderman Alt. I've met with the surrounding mayors this past week, and this was one of the items that I brought up, and each municipality is concerned about workforce housing and what we can do, and we feel like it needs to be a collaborative effort. It needs to involve our county officials as well, because within the city limits of Southport, there's just not affordable housing per se, and some of these other municipalities feel the same way. So there's a way that we can find, for example, St. James does not have workforce housing in there. So Mayor Toner was very receptive to this, and we'll be working on this, and I'll call on Alderman Alt to lead the discussion.
I agree that in the bigger picture, the amount of workforce housing that potentially we could build within the city limits is somewhat limited. But with that said, yes.
Pay no attention. Pay no attention to that woman with the fan.
I thought I had another critic. So, what I'm asking here is for the manager and for us to direct the manager and staff, because we've talked about stuff, and I'm trying to move it off the dime. That's all I'm trying to do. So, to work with Habitat for Humanity type organizations. There's more than just that one organization. To discuss what options we might have that might entice them to build some workforce housing within the city, and to bring that back. So basically poll what other people are doing. We don't have to be limited to what they're doing, you know, potentially. And I'm not suggesting that we should do this. I'm just saying it's an example. So if it takes $30,000 to hook up a house to a facility, and we can waive part or all of that, would that, working with Habitat, would that mean anything to them? In other words, would it make it get to the threshold that they could actually build something in the city that would do that? So I'm just looking for things that might help push that over. And if the city is already working with Habitat to look at that, then they can come all back to us and say, you know, we made these following ideas to them, and they didn't think any of them would work. That might be the answer. Or they said, as Carlos did say to me, you know, Rich, if you waive some of those fees, that would be 10% of the house, and that might kick it over the threshold where we actually could do it. And then there's the devil's advocate of that is, if we do it that means there's that less money coming into the coffers. Yeah, and so there's all of those things. But hopefully, in a relatively near future, I don't know what that is, part of those big fees are going to go away from us anyways. That being the sewer one, the $18,000. So that's where I'm looking for.
Well, I think we've got a new planning director on their way, hopefully. It's supposed to close the end of tomorrow, so hopefully, and I do think we need that planning director in place, Rich, for that evaluation, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which it also has to do with the enterprise fund and understanding all that, and just the whole planning process of that. I think that would be great. So I think, of course, I think that's a good thing for us to look, see if there's anything we can do.
I think that you do not have to be a planner to know that it's a good topic to make us feel good, and I really appreciate it, but it's not going to happen in Southport. With the average cost of a lot in Southport, the 30 grand, the 20 grand, whatever we're going to do for them, not going to happen. Certainly not going to happen with Habitat. So we've got to look at, okay, what's the alternative to that? The county is the alternative. The county has hundreds and thousands of lots that are not in incorporated towns and municipalities that don't currently have water and sewer to them. That's a county issue. Boiling Spring Lakes. There are lots that sell out there that do not perk for $4,000, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. Those are the types of lots that affordable homes are built on. So I would put pressure on the county. I appreciate all that they do. I hope that the county is listening when I ask them to extend their water and sewer to areas that would be good for affordable housing. And then we got to think about also, affordable housing isn't a one-off. It's not one house after another. It's density. It's condo complexes, apartment complexes. It's a whole different concept. So to call Habitat housing a solution for, and I think all of this came out of the homeless conversation, but to call that a solution, it's so minimal. The number of homes that they construct each year, it's not going to have an impact. So we've got to look outside, look at the county, look at areas that need water and sewer that don't currently have it, that if they did have it, you could construct affordable housing and go from there. So it will not, I'm not against affordable housing, but I can promise you it's not going to happen in Southport.
I agree. And today's news, this morning, I read that East West Partners, a name that we know very well, for 4 years they've been working with Wilmington on a big project, an enormous project, in fact, called Gateway. It's to the north of downtown. It's an enormous project that includes retail, a visitor center even, and among other things, 20% set aside for workforce, or if you want to call it, affordable housing. Now these are multifamily units. And just today, after all that they put into it, after the city said you can have the land, and that's worth $13 million, the city said we will make all these concessions for hookup fees, development fees, and everything. The city also said, but you've got to make it 20%, because East West wanted to make it only 10% affordable housing. And today, it's reported that East West has said, no, we're not going to go forward. And they're not even going to try. They're out. So anything less than about 20% doesn't make sense. At 10%, a big contractor, a big developer rather, like East West, says, with all these concessions, all these things that the city is giving, we can't do it, and we're not going to.
Well,
so this is certainly a collaborative effort that we're going to have to get the county somehow convinced to take the lead on this, both with zoning and with utilities.
This is not an all or nothing. I never meant it to be that. This is not an all or nothing. In other words, if we do this, then we're not going to work with the county. We need to work with the county. I know that I stood on a piece of land in Southport with Habitat and with a developer who was willing to take a loss, and they were discussing it. And that's where I stepped away from that conversation because I don't want to be part of those finances or have it look like the board or any part of the board is involved in it. But I knew what they were doing. Then when I later went back to say, what do other jurisdictions do, Carlos? And he said they waive the fees, and that sometimes can push us over the line. So my point was just merely to go back. While we may sit here and pontificate about this, let's go back to the guy who's going to build them. My feeling is we were put on notice this last legislative session. All of us, not just Southport, all of us. We were going to have many of our rights taken away from us, and the line they kept using time and time again was workforce housing. Now, we were able to get over that hump. But I don't know that we're going to have to get over that hump again if we haven't shown, not only the Southport, but everybody has shown that they're going to go do something. So Leland just put in, I think, 8 houses, individual homes, R10. And Habitat is doing that. So somehow, miraculously, they were able to do that. Calabash, I believe, is putting in 6. If we even just did 4, it would show that we're actually trying to work on it. But the big project, truly, I agree with Robert, the big project or solving problem is in the county. And it should be, I think we should be doing all of that. But if the board doesn't think they want to go down this road, that's fine. They can take that stance.
Well, I certainly support Habitat for Humanity's project, but it's almost like trying to bail out the ocean with a teaspoon.
Yes. Yeah. When we start talking about workforce housing and affordable housing, I don't know why they're so frequently used interchangeably, because affordable housing is relative, right? So affordable housing is if you make enough money, you can afford it. So an affordable house could be $1 million home for the right buyer. So affordable housing sometimes should not be used, or most of the time should not be used with regards to workforce housing. With the average rent over $1,200 across the nation, that's not, generally speaking, affordable for workforce families. So where do you come up with workforce housing? And you have to do all of these things that we've discussed. Habitat is not necessarily workforce housing. It's a good concept, but again, 1, 2, 3, not going to make a dent in it in the real goals and objectives. The county, there's, again, so much land in Brunswick County that if water and sewer were just to it, we might find a national developer who wanted to come in and develop affordable housing, because it happens all the time. And most likely with East West, they were going to sell that portion of land for someone else to develop as workforce housing, would be my guess. So, for me, again, going back to the idea that Southport, I don't see any land in Southport proper being affordable or workforce housing.
To put in my 2 cents, I agree that Southport's never going to have that. However, I think that if the county does not construct multiple units under their jurisdictions, because if you have just houses and they're built, they don't always have to stay low-cost housing. It could go right back to being ridiculous. If the county builds and has control over these units as workforce housing forever, they will control it. I think that's the only way to guarantee it. I don't think few individual houses will do it. I think the county has got to take it on and build these homeless shelters or these low-cost housings, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, that
I
is,
like the idea that, Alderman Alt, I like what we're trying to accomplish. I think it's the right thing. I think it's a good thing. It's just, we need to, the real conversation needs to be with the county, with our, county commissioners. They want to do the right thing too. They are experiencing the same problem we are. Staff, all of these challenges that we face. I think about some of our other municipalities or Bald Head Island, for instance. Almost everybody I talk to from Bald Head Island lives in Wilmington, all of these employees, and I'm thinking, how in the hell are they able to bring these people over, considering that the ferry alone is exhausting, right? Like you've just driven 45 minutes, now you're on a ferry. So I don't know the answer. I don't know why people go there, but to work, except for maybe it's the money. But they're certainly going back to Wilmington because the housing is more affordable. They're going back to a place where you can get rent for maybe $1,700. So,
Bonnie, how, as a board, how do we approach the county or make a request or whatever?
Well, basically, you can just say, you've done it with other topics that you just, I would like to, the Southport Board of Aldermen would like to have the Brunswick County Commissioners form some kind of a regional approach to affordable housing and include all member communities, something like that. But yeah, it can be general in nature, but it's saying that Southport wants to make a stand, and county, you need to step up and do something.
Who would actually, put that letter together?
Well, I think if you give us a concept, we could do a draft. Usually the mayor will sign it on behalf of the board, but we could put together some type of
Well, that's a
draft.
start. Maybe that's what we should do.
Well, just as an aside, I will tell you, because I still follow Connecticut newspaper. You know what they're doing there? They're forcing it. The state has basically said to every town, you come up with an affordable housing plan, and it must meet a certain percentage, or you will no longer get any state funding. So they're clamping down because
well, I
they're
think
having
that's
the
Alderman
same
Alt's
issue the
point.
rest of us are having.
I think that's Alderman Alt's point.
That is exactly right. If we don't do something meaningful here, the state legislature is going to do it to us, and they're going to take rights away from us in order to do that. So
Yeah, and that's what happened in Connecticut. The towns wouldn't do anything, and so they forced them into it.
So, but what are they doing? How can they force a property owner to put what we would call affordable housing on it? What are they doing? They can offer all kinds of incentives, just like Wilmington offered to East West. They gave them the land, they gave them all these allowances, and East West said it's not enough.
Well, they are finding ways, because I'll tell you, some of the communities I manage there, I can't believe how many they're building right now. They got to sit with the planning board or whoever is the authority and negotiate all this stuff. But and there are incentives from the state that go along with the municipal incentives. But better that we as a county work on it before the state tells you, and then they have control over it.
Would you like a motion worded to direct you to approach the county?
Can I ask a question first, Lo? I'm
sure.
sorry. The mayor said that you had talked to other mayors. I would hope that if we craft a letter, perhaps the mayor could reach out to some of the other mayors. There'd strengthen numbers, and perhaps we could get more traction.
We're meeting next month on this very topic. That's our main topic, and those mayors have already reached out to the county commissioners, and we plan to reach out as a group and also to our state officials. Brunswick County, as you know, and I've said it before, it's the 7th fastest growing county in the nation, and there are developments that are coming in, commercial entities So where are they going to get the people to work there? So they are, in Brunswick County, is the largest employer workforce in the county. St. James is third, and so they need housing. We have lots of land, and board, you're right. This is where it needs to go. It's not that far from Southport to be out in the county or to these other municipalities that need workforce to come into their cities and towns. So that's the direction it's going to have to go, and it's going to require incentives. It's going to require collaborative effort, municipal, county, state, and even federal, to get these complexes built and get these people in. So there will be workers that are closer by. They can work on Bald Head, or work in Southport, work at St. James, and work for the county in general. So I certainly will work in that regard, and if you would like to make a motion that we instruct the city manager, instruct the mayor to contact all of these officials to work on workforce housing for the future and get these projects started as soon as possible. There's a motion, and yeah. Yeah.
It's not exactly what I wanted, but the object at the 30,000 foot level is to get us to do something. So I will go with that.
And not that it needs to be in the motion, but I would also ask the city manager, when the new planning director gets on board, to have that discussion about a Habitat house and fees and stuff, if that is something that can happen in the city.
Yeah, and I'm not at all opposed to the city supporting Habitat or anybody else doing anything like that. So that was not my argument. Okay.
Oh, I'm glad you made that clarification, because it was clear to me that what we were saying, what the city was saying by democratic role, was we ain't going to talk to them.
No.
And I don't think that's what your real intent is.
That's not.
So I'm happy that we're clarifying that we're going to still move forward with trying to figure out, is there a way that we could have some here? You know, it'd be nice to have the school teacher right down the street here, living in Southport, that goes to the elementary school and all of that. It's not going to be, I never thought that we were going to solve world peace in Southport. So my point was, try to do something in Southport, do the bigger picture in the county. I'm glad that we're moving in that direction, and I think we can do both of those things.
With Habitat, I think that we're jumping the gun. They have not brought any project to us yet. And it appears to me that the sentiment of the board would be leaning toward saying yes and helping them. But there's nothing before us yet, so there's no decision on Habitat.
I'm only following up on conversation that the director of the Brunswick County Habitat had with myself. And he's been here to talk to the manager, and he's been here to talk to us. He has trying to feel us out to figure out what can they do because of the high price of the land to bring the prices down. So he engaged me in this conversation. I don't know what he did with the manager about, you know, one of the ideas you could have is the waiving of fees. And he actually talked about it, I believe, in this room.
Yeah, he actually handed out a whole piece of paper that, and I think I had given it to, well, I know I did, gave it to Travis, on ways that the city can write it into their regs.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for that excellent discussion. Committee reports, they will be in your packet. Manager's report.
Yeah, sorry, just really, really quickly, you have the draft of the October 12th agenda in front of you. I've been trying to send to all of you the bigger reports that are coming out, because you got 3 good-sized ones that night, so you can have a little bit more breathing room to read through them. Again, please, if you have questions ahead of time, it helps to expedite the presentations. That would really help. We do have a meeting, I'm sure the mayor's going to mention this, next Wednesday at Indian Trails. Indian Trails, it's at Indian Trails at 9 a.m. on shoreline stabilization. And then the only other quick thing, as I always do, years of service, we have the fire shift captain, Jonathan Bullard, at 4 years, police officer Mark Coy at 1 year, Fire Marshal Madison Drew at 4 years, firefighter Alexander Finley at 3 years. Oh, how appropriate with Fire Prevention Month. And Mo, who happens to be here, is here 1 year, yesterday. And Sean Pendergrass, grounds maintenance, 4 years. David Sosaby, fire shift captain, 4 years. And then our favorite, Mr. Ralph Treadway, 3 years as the battalion chief. Thank you, Mayor. I am good.
Thank you. My comments are very brief. I'm looking forward to the meeting on the 11th, again at Indian Trail on shoreline stabilization. Then we have our Board of Aldermen meeting October 12th, and we have, we'll be recognizing, as mentioned, Fire Prevention Week, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, emergency nurses, and several special employees, and also a proclamation for National Friends of Libraries. This weekend, if you are one who loves the water and the sea, there's the King Mackerel Fishing Tournament, opening ceremony tonight, and then there'll be fishing Friday and Saturday, so that'll be at Dutchman Creek. And also Captain Charlie's fishing tournament at the City Pier on Saturday. So we look forward to that. And I'll now go to board comments. Alderman Allen.
Thank you. I just going to take this opportunity to try to embarrass our fire chief a little bit, if I can, in a good way. I went to, I know some of y'all went, I went and got some fried fish dinner from the lunch, actually, from the fire department a couple of weeks ago. And I pulled up in there, and of course it's all, you know, they've got it with military precision, and it's all perfect. And Charles is in there in the middle of it, as always, making sure it's all running smoothly. And it just kind of reminded me of how much Charles Drew does for this town, and how much I appreciate him, and I'm sure we all do. I mean, not only him, but his whole family and for generations have been serving Southport, and it's a really cool thing to have somebody like Charles that, you know, has been here for so long, that's continuing to make Southport a better place for all of us. Thank you, Charles.
Alderman Carroll.
All right, I will agree with Alderman Allen as it relates to Chief Drew. Chief Drew has been the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission and is doing a fantastic job. We met yesterday, or they met yesterday, made some good progress. I think the next meeting is the 16th of this month at 6 p.m. That is going to be a town hall in this building, so it will be right here. It'll be a town hall style meeting between the Historic Preservation Commission and the community. This is an opportunity, just one more of many opportunities that have already existed for the community to participate and give feedback and better understand what guidelines and exciting information is coming out of Historic Preservation Commission. So I think following that would be our November 1st meeting at 4 o'clock, which would be hosted at Indian Trail, and then another meeting sometime in November for us to continue the conversation about what's in the 13th. Perfect. I had it the 13th, but I wasn't sure. So, so they're making great progress. I'm very excited about what's coming out of that, and hopefully, once people start to see what's involved in the language itself, they better understand. One of the most common concerns we get is house color. And Lo and I have talked about this. As long as her house is turquoise, everybody else's house is safe. So,
no. Surely that wasn't the standard. I do have a question for you. How will the public know in advance these standards before the town hall?
Yeah, they're already posted on our city website.
There's a banner on the homepage. So after the Welcome to Southport, the next one is the Historic Preservation Draft Standards webpage. And then also going to the HPC webpage itself, you can access it there as well.
I think it's like 27 or 29 pages. Yeah, I went through it, yeah. It was well written, well done.
I knew that, I just wanted to be sure the public knew.
Thank you. I appreciate you yes. So the only other thing that I would mention is that because it is campaign season, there's a lot going on. We got conversations about signs, other things. I am not running. I have 2 more years, and so my name keeps getting thrown out of there and social media posts and other things. I'm not running against anybody. I am here for the city of Southport, and just know that, and if you have questions about what's going on or anything, feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone. Happy to chat with anybody about the fact that I'm not running.
Tell me again, what time and where is the Historic District meeting on the 16th?
16th, right here at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Alderman Alt.
In the spirit of the greater community, while not quite in Southport, the Catholic Church and the St. Philip's Episcopal Church every fall hold the big festivals. And they hold them on the same day, so those people that like to go to those things can go from one to the other. It'll be this coming Saturday, I guess it is. I just wanted to bring that out.
Thank you. And Chief Drew, certainly you know how we feel about you. And I failed to mention, because our meeting is after October 10th. So I want everyone to know that you can have supper at the fire station on October 10th. It is chili. And I tell you, it's the best chili I've had. And I was there last year, and I'm going to try to get by there again. So thank you for doing that. It's for the community. Bring your children, your grandchildren. It's a great time, and enjoyed it so much last year. So thank you for doing that. Alderman Lowe Davis.
I'd like to ask the city manager to clarify political signs not in private property. We've dealt with that. Okay. On state roads, and is it assumed that we have permission, or are we supposed to specifically have permission either in writing or in some way that is easy to reference to put a political sign in the state right-of-way in front of private property, whether it's vacant or occupied?
Well, go on to say public property as well. So that would be...
Yeah, by my interpretation of this, the city-owned property should not have any signs in front of it.
Just
Franklin Square Park,
the
waterfront, the water tower, and so on. But what about all up and down, say, House Street, where there are a lot of signs? I moved mine thinking that this was something that I could not assume I had permission. So mine are only where I've gone, knocked on the door, or called somebody and asked.
So I'm not going to go around and have our zoning guy, drill you guys, but I'm going to tell you, quite honestly, I'm getting more and more complaints about them. I've sent a few of them over to you. So my advice, if we get a complaint and we got to go to whoever, then I would hope you would have something you can show, or that something you can tell the code enforcement guy, I got permission, I followed the state law.
The complaints I hear a lot are especially from vacant property owners who said, wait a minute, what's this?
Clip.
And I really think that's a Brady conversation, because when I read the statute, it says residence, business, or house of worship. And the way I read it, but I'm not an attorney, but the way I read it is that there would be a structure there. That's sort of, because that would seem
That's
to...
correct.
And because it would seem to me to mean that they didn't want you put in front of somebody's house so it looked like they supported you without their permission. My question, Bonnie, is, if you are going to talk to the attorney and get some, is the way the state law says fronting the right-of-way, well, on the corners, that right-of-way on the corner is fronted by other right-of-way. It's not fronted by that property. And so to me, that's Karen Mosteller, but I'm not an attorney. So if you can...
Well,
What does fronted mean? Is it the front door or everything in a structure?
I think the only other thing that we might clarify in this conversation is that political signs are not permitted in any city right-of-way, none, for any reason. They have to be on, well, I know, but there are a lot of them. So I just clarifying, because not all of the public knows. They see them in right-of-way along, I guess, 9th, Howe, a few more, yes, Leonard. Those are state-owned. Those are not city. And so in the city, no signs in the right-of-way for any reason.
And there's a proliferation of political signs right next to the road. So if you're going to put a sign on city streets, it's got to be back off the right-of-way, which we know is pretty wide, into the yard.
Well, and 3 feet off of the road, according to state statute.
But this is city.
Yeah, but I'm also saying for the state roads.
And with permission, yes. Okay. Okay, Lombardi.
Yeah, I have 2 things. I got a beautification committee. Will finally get back on their schedule. They'll meet this first Saturday in November to finish up some staining, some benches and garbage surrounds and tables. They'll also do some weeding at various locations. So if you'd like to help, meet at the old jail annex at 9 p.m. And then the second thing I got to say is something that I really couldn't say last time because we cut the meeting short. I recently had my knee replaced at Dozier Hospital, as most of you know, and realized how fortunate we are to have this facility so close at hand. The doctors, nurses, assistants, and the entire staff made you feel comfortable at all times. I was also able to start my PT before I left and continue today. A high five to the OT and PT departments for their skilled guidance and caring that has enabled me to almost walk normally in such a short time. I thank you to Dozier Hospital, and I'm going to repeat this at our next meeting.
Okay, I've got just a couple of things. Pet CPR and first aid training this Saturday. There's still a few slots left. It's limited to participate. There is a tuition cost of $100. It is being sponsored by our Animal Protective Services Department. It's from 10 to 4 at the Indian Trail Tree this Saturday. So if I'm signed up, just so you know. I was told there were a few more slots. So if anybody wants to participate in that, come a little early. Also, following up on Captain Charlie's, which the mayor already mentioned, just want to say that it's this Saturday. Registration begins at 8:30 a.m. Starting time is 9. Ending time is 12. One of my favorite comments on here that I was given by Parks and Recs on their flyer, it says, "No sharks, skates, rays, or eels will be counted." And ages are 16 years old and under, and there are different groups, and only 1 rod per child. So, and parents and guardians are allowed on the pier, but the contestant must reel in the fish unassisted. That's it.
Thank you, board. The next item is item M, and that's going to be a closed session, and it pertains to acquisition of real property or purchase. So we'll go into closed session, and then we'll come back and go back into open session and then adjourn. So for right now, we will need a motion to go into closed session.
I just wanted to state a possible conflict that I did not state earlier. I apologize.
Okay, that's fine. So Alderman Carroll, well, as a realtor, that could be every meeting, right? Just kidding. Motion to go into closed session. Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Lombardi. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. All right, closed session. Thank you for being here, public and staff. And cookies and water in the back. that motion to go back into open session? Okay, thank you. We, all in favor? Okay, all right, back in open session. Second, thank you. We're back in open session. We had a discussion concerning possibility of real estate matters. And so now we've had a great meeting, and we will have another one a week from today, and also one on this Wednesday. So I'll thank the board and those still here, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.